Well folks, welcome back of course to day 2 of Special Projects pack number 8, this time for something which I know more and more of you have come to enjoy, which is great to see, my signature series of cars, which for those who are new to the concept is pretty much like my own fictional tuning company in Gran Turismo. I call it Signature, and this time it's kind of more in the same vein as the M3R build which I did last month. I thought people were going to find that one quite controversial and they ended up absolutely loving it. In fact, I think it was the most popular tune of all 10 last time, and a lot of people love the way it looked as well. This one I built at a similar time. I call it the Signature Focus RSR, and this is, as you can kind of tell, a similar hardcore version of the Focus. And in terms of the swaps and stuff, of course you can get the visual design that I did for it, if you want it to look like this full-on build, from the link in the description below, of course. And as far as the build itself, you will, as you can kind of see from the numbers, I mean a 5.4 litre engine isn't exactly a standard Focus, that you will need the Ford GT LM engine swap. So much like the HKS GTR, this is quite an expensive one. I don't recall exactly how much that engine costs, but I don't think it was cheap. As far as the build itself, and of course you will want the wide body as well, you can kind of see that. As far as the build though, it's quite a simple one. It usually is simple when you've fitted an aftermarket engine. You've got its stage 1 weight, of course. It comes with sports hards, but you don't need to keep those unless you want to. As far as the club sports section, stage 2 weight, of course, power restrictor and ballast. The semi-racing stuff, we've got the fully customised computer. I have fitted both the low-end and high-end supercharger, but I'm actually only using the lower-end one. So if you don't want to buy both, of course that's the one to go for, or you could just buy them both and then you've got the option. You want the fully customised diff, of course the stage 3 weight. I've opted not to bother with the body rigidity on this one. It certainly has no issues with the rigidity through corners, that's for sure. We've got the racing silencer, of course. Like I said, I did buy the high-end torque supercharger as well. We've got the racing pads, racing discs. Doesn't really matter if you go for vented or drilled, or if you go for the carbon ceramics even. It's all down to personal preference. We've got the torque vectoring centered diff, naturally, the race clutch and flywheel, race suspension, race transmission, and I have all of the racing tyres fitted, but I'm actually using the racing softs, because obviously this build is designed to just be crazy, so maximum grip, maximum fun. As far as the extreme stuff, I have NOS, but I don't actually have it put on for this one. That was more for back when I was using the car as a speed build. Now you don't need to buy NOS if you don't want it. The carbon ceramics are of course purchased as well, so like I said, you can vary it depending on what you want to fit and what you want to use. The hydraulic handbrake, just for a bit of extra mobility and manoeuvrability, and of course the steering angle adapter as well, which naturally complements the turn-in on really tight corners. The intermediate tyres you don't need. That's, again, just a totally different build thing. And as far as the ultimate section, the carbon prop. As you can see, it sits up around 750 points, so not too far off the HKS Drag Skyline build. This one is definitely more track ready, I'll say that, than the HKS. And once again, as I pretty much always like to do, with my signature builds, I like them to have nice rounded off numbers that look good. So 700 horsepower, 1250 kilos. And the idea behind this particular build was, what if somebody like a Ken Block type just had the money to buy a racing Ford GT engine, already had a Ford Focus RS, and thought, you know what, I'm just going to build a crazy track monster like the Zonda R of Ford Focuses. And that is the idea behind it. So a de-restricted GT engine with 700 horsepower and roughly a GT car kind of weight at 1250 kilos, but of course with the advantage of four-wheel drive. So we've got the softs fitted. As far as the suspension, I've actually got the front just a little bit higher, which helps to counteract some of the instability that this tune has. And I will say, I gave this warning last time, but I think it needs to be given out again. I said it about the M3. This is not a beginner's tune. It is tremendously quick, and I guess it's a little bit more forgiving than the M3 because of the four-wheel drive, but this car becomes much more unstable through really high-speed corners. It will have a tendency to kick out the back end quite dramatically, because this is 100% designed for very, very tight cornering. So on somewhere like Tokyo, it's an absolute weapon. Square corners, throwing it through really tight bends. It feels like a time attack car, or Tsukuba. It'd probably be great for that. Ironically, I took it to the Nürburgring, and over the crest sections, and I even teased this in the trailer a few days ago where you can see the car spinning out, it will just lose control randomly. And there are a couple of reasons for that, and you can see one when it comes to the downforce, but we've got 3 and 4 on anti-roll, 20 for the compression on the dampers, 30 on the rebound, 2.95 for the frequency on the springs. We've got more camber on the front, 2 and 1 on the rear. Again, of course, that does aid the back end to kick out a little bit more, but it also makes it pretty damn nice through really tight corners, like I said. We've got the toe in, 10 on the rear, and toe out just a little bit, 5 on the front. As far as the diff, I've got 40, 40, and 40, and then 555 on the back with a 50-50 split. As far as the NOS, well, it appears that I do have it fitted, although I didn't bother using it, so like I said, you don't have to buy that unless you want it. The gear ratio is pretty close. 340 kilometers an hour is quite a tight spread for a 700 horsepower car of any type, really, so you can tell it's more of an acceleration build, more of, you know, like the Ascari A10 kind of feel, where you're really snatching through the gears like a quick shift box, rather than, you know, a top-end supercar. It's not designed to feel like that. You can change the gearing if you want to, though, or if you need to. As far as the power restrictor, that is untouched. I've got a little bit of ballast just to bring us up to 1250, 31 kilos, and then I've put that all the way to the back just to give a bit more weight over that back end. And I've got the ECU set to 97% just to round it off to 700 horsepower and quite a bit of torque as well. And of course, this aspect doesn't really help with that back end. So if you do want to put your own spin on this build and fit, for example, a rear wing, it will probably help. Or you could alternately reduce the front downforce, because the front has a huge amount of downforce and then the back is just standard, which obviously, like I said, doesn't help. It's essentially a semi-drift car in some ways. Having more camber on the front than the back, having more downforce on the front than the back, it's very drift car kind of stuff. But yeah, again, it really helps with those super low speed corners, but high end, not so much. So there are definitely some alterations you could make if you wanted to change the personality of the car a bit more and make it a bit more stable at higher speeds. And then for the rest, it was pretty simple. You can see everything we've done. So of course, now all that remains is to jump out to the Nordschleife and show you the car in action. Now, I do hope that some of you enjoy this. I don't think it will necessarily be as popular as the M3R. That is, well, the first signature car I built, so in some ways probably the legacy of what many of the other ones turned out to be like. And this one definitely followed on from it. The idea of the Focus, it's already a fantastic car. Four-wheel drive, rally kind of bred with a great amount of horsepower. It's got great performance, one of the probably standout new cars from day one in GT7, and then turning it into this crazy 5.4 litre supercharged V8 race car in a hot hatch body, well, that was just a cool idea to me. So if you do decide to use it, if you grab the design for it, I hope you enjoy the car. Maybe you have a Focus that you're not really doing anything with and you fancy building something crazy and new. I hope, of course, you enjoy it. You could potentially use it for racing with a few changes here and there, depending on the point level. And of course, if you do put your own spin on it with like a spoiler or changing the camber, etc., then of course you could drop that in the comments as well. But that's it for this build, of course. Check out the others this week. And naturally, I'll see you next time. But for now, thanks for watching.